Welcome everyone. This is Michael from the Marks Group Live. Happy to be reviewing Getting Started with Zoho Showtime. After this video is over, please do feel free to email us at support@marksgrouplive.com for any questions on this topic or on anything else Zoho. Also, be sure to rate this class as well, helping out your fellow Zoho users and helping us to improve our video library. Zoho Showtime is Zoho's web conferencing and online virtual training system. It's available on the web, as a mobile app, and through a plugin for Microsoft PowerPoint. Using Showtime, your learners can follow along with live presentations, they can share your screen, request microphone access, like your slides, pose questions, answer polls, and provide feedback on your session. Zoho Showtime also integrates with Zoho CRM and provides detailed analytics about what happened during your session. If you've used a tool such as Blackboard Collaborate, you'll be completely familiar with many of the tools available in Zoho Showtime. So here's what we've got coming up today. We're going to compare Zoho Showtime's pricing tiers to see what comes with different packages. We're going to look at the administration setup and figure out how to set up an administrative user. We're going to look at user types, that is either the training user or the super administrator, and we're going to look at the user setup, how to set up or set configurations for an individual user. And we're going to do everything today up to, but not including, hosting your first session. That's going to happen in a follow-up lesson here. Now, before we get into our Zoho screens, one word of advice: if your screen does not look exactly like mine, don't panic. Your Zoho instance may be set up slightly differently from mine, and there may be a few differences among some of the screens. Zoho makes changes to its programs and to its applications from time to time, and you may be using a different version of the program from what I'm using. If you try to replicate what I'm doing and you run into trouble, send us an email at support@marksgrouplive.com. One other note, Zoho Showtime prefers to be either on Firefox or on Google Chrome. I've been using Firefox for a while now, and it has worked perfectly for me. So let's start with a review of the different versions of Zoho that are currently available and look at what some of the important differences are. Like many of Zoho applications, Showtime does have a free tier. This allows you to host a web conference with up to 5 participants. You get scheduling, content sharing, screen sharing, polls, and some audience engagement features. From there on, there are 4 different paid tiers of Showtime, from the basic to standard to professional to enterprise. Taking a quick look at them, the basic tier doubles the number of people who can attend any session and lets you record your sessions for later, along with a few other handy features. This is still a good plan if you're a freelance trainer or if your organization is just getting ready to get started with a training platform. It gets more serious with the standard plan, where your organization can have its own learning portal, and you get an administrator console. You can have multiple trainers, and you can have up to 25 people attending any session. The professional plan has 2 features that might be deal makers for you. Along with 100 people who can attend any session simultaneously, and the possibility of having 2 simultaneous trainers in any session, the professional plan also gives you integration with Zoho CRM, and it gives you the ability to put your content behind a paywall so that you can monetize your training. The enterprise version is almost identical to the professional plan, except that you have a maximum storage space of 25 gigs, and you can have up to 200 people attending any given session. So let's actually take a look at Showtime. Showtime starts up with this screen. I'm still in the 15-day trial since I only registered this account this morning. Now, up at the top, you'll see that Zoho knows my account information. So the TMG Live Admin account has been running for a couple of months now. We've been mostly training on the Zoho CRM system, so we already have an account. Zoho has pulled that information into the Showtime profile that you see here. Now, down below, there are 5 main tabs: Sessions, Library, My Recordings, Settings, and Administration. Let's walk through each one of these to see what we can do with them and what we can find. We're going to start at the bottom with the Administration tab. When I click that, I get 6 sub-tabs across the top here. The first one has to do with the particular version of Showtime that I've purchased. This demo version of Zoho Showtime is similar to the professional plan insofar as I have 100 users per session and I have 10 gigabytes of space. There are some features that actually are not consistent with the professional, so the demo version doesn't give you exactly what is available in the professional plan, but it gives you enough certainly to get started and find out whether it's worth the money to go for the professional plan, or whether you can deal with something less or more powerful. The second tab talks about users, managing users. Usually this is a super administrator, which is what I am here, or I can add another user who is a regular administrator or a trainer. Depending on your version of Zoho Showtime, additional user licenses can usually be purchased, and they usually cost just slightly over half of what the monthly subscription cost is. So depending on how many trainers you've got, that is actually the key, or one of the 2 keys to the cost of each version of Showtime. The other factor, of course, is the maximum number of people who can attend any given training session. The next sub-tab over, the payments. This is strictly for professional or enterprise users, and it's where you can set up a paywall. If you're interested in an in-depth look at this feature, check out our video library and get in touch with us if you don't find that video. In the next sub-tab over, we have the organizational profile, and I'm going to spend a few moments here. Here, I can upload our business logo, which I've actually already done. I can do it in JPEG, PNG, or SVG. SVG is an interesting choice there. Although for something as small as the logo, I would actually usually go with the PNG because it's non-lossy and it doesn't give you the ugly artifacts that you get with JPEGs. I can set the organization name here, organizational email, describe the organization. Now, website, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, these social profiles, these are for the organization. This is not the personal profile of any individual user, either the super administrator or any of the trainers. That comes later. This is the organization profile. The social media connections are pretty interesting. You should check out our lesson on Zoho Social, because the ability to integrate your training with your organization's social media profile with your CRM, that becomes extremely powerful in terms of finding users or finding customers and supporting them well. One more sub-tab over, we have the dashboard, which gives us a snapshot of the training that we've been doing, which in this environment right here today is not much. In the follow-up lesson on creating your first session in Zoho Showtime, you'll actually get to see what this looks like after we've hosted a session or 2 or more. Finally, one tab over, we have the integrations sub-tab, and this is where I could configure Showtime to share information with our Zoho CRM. You can probably imagine how this might impact your business if you could integrate your training and demonstration platform with a CRM. So for example, in your CRM, you might have a note beside everybody that goes along with everybody who has purchased a particular product, and then do a demonstration on that product within Showtime. But because you've already recorded all of your users in your CRM, you can invite those users. Within your CRM, or use your CRM communication tools to invite those users to a demonstration session. It's probably limited more than anything else by your creativity, and of course time. Now down below, let's see if we've got those tabs. Oh, the integration subtab. Okay, so finding my place here. So those are the tabs or the subtabs for the administration area. Now let's look at the settings, the major settings tab. Now this is where we get the user profile. So I've already mentioned that the organizational profile gets set. The organizational profile is set in the administration area. This is for me as the TMG Live Admin user. So I can change my photo there. That's my user profile. Now I've clicked on that. I'm just going to, so you don't see the file selector. I've opened, I will take that as a picture. With apologies, I will change the square there, center that, save it, and now there I am. Although that has changed my picture elsewhere. So I'm not sure that that's going to show up in the CRM. Rather than leave it there, I'm just going to bring that back and put the Marks Group Live logo back there. And we're back to where we began, which is good. I've added some skills here. This is what the users are going to see when I conduct a training. So each of your trainers will have his or her area here. So they can each set their occupation, the organization, the About Me section, and now here, let me just look at the skills for a moment, show you how to enter these skills. To enter a skill, all we have to do is type something. So I've already put in instructional design, e-learning, online training, and let's add bread baking. I can either use a comma to indicate that I'm finished, or I can use hit the enter or return key. There. So those are the skills that I've added. That's what users will see when we have a session and they click on my profile information. Excuse me. And finally, we've got the website, Twitter profile, LinkedIn, and Facebook. This is actually per user now. This is not the administration's website and social accounts. This is the individual user's accounts. And in my case, I'm the administrative user. Just a quick note, though, on different types of users. There we go. The super administrator is the first user, is the default user. And after that, we usually have users who are trainers. You can assign a user to be an administrator as well, giving that person more power within the system, the ability to affect more changes within the system. In most cases, it's probably good to have one super admin and one user, unless, of course, the super administrator is the only person who has access to all parts of the system, and then that person, if that person can't be found or is rendered inoperative for some reason, that could be a problem for your organization. So you may, if you have one super administrator and only one other person with access to the system, you might actually want to engage in succession planning and make the second user not a trainer, but actually an administrator. All right. Let me save my changes there. So it gives me a little pop-up to say it's done that successfully, and go up to my recordings. As you can expect, the My Recordings tab is empty because we haven't recorded a training session yet. After our lesson on recording your first Zoho Showtime session, you'll be able to come back to this, or we will come back to this, and we'll see what this looks like. Now, before I move on to the library, I'm going to reiterate that we've just signed up for Zoho Showtime. In fact, if you look at administration, let's go to manage users. Here we go. I joined 1 day ago. So I haven't recorded any trainings, just getting started in this system. I've been walking through the initial setup with you, and here we are starting the 15-day trial. Oh, it now expires in 14 days, so that actually makes sense, doesn't it? So let's take a look at the next tab up, the library. And here we don't see nothing. There's something here, there's content here. If we just set up the account yesterday, why is there content here? Did we get hacked by some strange person who puts presentations into other people's folders at random? That'd be cool, but no. No, we didn't get hacked. We just set up our Showtime demo yesterday, but the Marks Group Live account also has access to the Zoho Docs application, which is very similar to Google Docs. In fact, if I look at my Zoho Docs folder, I'll flip to that tab now. If we look at our Zoho Docs folder, you'll see up at the top, my first demo presentation, two untitled presentations. Let me change the name on one of those. I'm just going to right click on it. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to say another presentation that's empty. And let me right click on that. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Let me go to the right, let me right click on that, rename that my first empty presentation. Entirely empty, and I used to be able to spell, there we go. There. So I've got these three presentations. They just happen to be at the top because I've looked at them recently. Just to show you what's in the My First Demo Presentation document, I'm going to open that. There we go. My first presentation within Zoho, a subtitle added on May 13th. Let's see, by Michael Friesen, Marks Group Live Trainer. Okay, so you can see that I've just made this change here. Let's put that away. So I've just made that change. Now, let's flip back to Zoho Showtime. What Showtime is doing is it's looking inside my Documents folder, my Zoho Docs folder, to see if there are presentations. Because Zoho assumes, for better or worse, that the starting point for a lesson is a presentation slide deck. So when I go to my Zoho Showtime library, I see by default the presentations that are in my Zoho Docs folder at the top level of the folder. Now, there are two subtabs at the top. The first is presentations. Within here, I can search for a file name. Actually, just a quick note, I didn't refresh my screen. Let me refresh my screen, and you'll see what happens to those file names right there, those two file names. Refresh the screen, and now you can see that it's pulling in those two files, or all three of those files, from the Zoho Docs folder. All right, so I can search for a file name. For example, I can search for the word first, or I can look for the word demo. So I can search for a file name. I can look for all presentations that were shared with me, or presentations that were synchronized from PowerPoint. And I can sort the list either by modification date, name, or the creation date. File name, I guess that would be, and the creation date. So if I search by file name, there we go, alphabetical order, and modification date, it looks like that. I can also add materials here, which is really nifty. I can either add content in the form of an old style PowerPoint, a new style PowerPoint, or a PDF. I really like the idea of being able to put in a PDF because it means that you're not hamstrung by the file formats, by the PowerPoint file formats, which means you can create your assets in a far more powerful graphic environment, or an environment that is more offers vastly better typography, save your work as a PDF and upload that. We can also create a presentation within Zoho Show right from this menu here. Let's take a quick look at polls. One sub-tab over, we have polls. Now these are very cool, particularly for synchronous training. In the video on creating your first lesson on Zoho Showtime, I do cover the use of polls, so keep an eye out for that in our Marks Group Live trainings library. And finally, up here on the left side, we get to Sessions, which is where Zoho Showtime actually starts you when you first log in. And once again, there isn't anything to see. If we had, at least there's nothing to see yet. If we had already done a session in this version of Showtime, or in this installation, I should say, you would have seen it in the past sessions. If there were a session coming up, you'd see it here. Within both of these contexts, again, you can search by a different file name. You can filter by either all sessions, the sessions that I've created, or the sessions that have all sessions that have been created within this organization. And I can sort either by time or the registrants, the number of registrants who came to a session. Now I'm going to click on Create Sessions, or Create a Session. I either have a remote session. This is where an instructor and the audience aren't necessarily in the same room or even on the same continent. And by contrast, there's a face-to-face session where the assumption is, or the operating controls are set up with the assumption that the trainer and the audience members are all in the same room. We might, as we see, we might often start the session with a presentation, but we're going to see a lot more interactivity and a lot more features than simply a broadcast presentation. We will get into that. I'm going to cancel right now. I can either click on the cancel button down there, or I can click on the escape in the upper right corner. So that gets me out of here. In our follow-up lesson, we will create a session. We may create 2 sessions, and we're going to look at how that works when you have a trainer and an audience. Let's recap what we've covered today. Yeah, we covered that. Here we go. So we looked at the different pricing tiers for Zoho Showtime. We looked at setting up the administrator functions. We looked at the 2 different types of users, that is the super admin as well as the conventional users or the trainers, as well as the intermediate sort of admin user that does not have super user capabilities. And finally, we looked at some user setup parameters, and we just dipped our toes into creating a session. I do hope that you had that this session was valuable to you. I hope you found some useful information here. If you have any questions about other Zoho features or about Zoho Showtime, do check out our library for other videos, or if you don't find what you're looking for, send us an email at support@marksgrouplive.com, and thanks very much for viewing.